Imagine the world 2 million years ago. Not a world of cities, not a world of technology, not even a world of compassion. Just wild lands, dark skies, and the first humans, who didn't even know what it meant to be human. What really happened before civilization existed? Were we truly born of love and cooperation? Or did we come from something much darker? This story is not a fairy tale. It is a reconstruction of facts discovered by scientists, traces of bones and stones that hold hard to accept truths. A truth about the darkest side of humanity. About rituals, betrayals, and legacies we carry to this day without ever realizing it. Welcome to Uncovered, the dark truth about human life 2 million years ago. This story will shake your understanding of human origins. If you have an opinion about what really happened in the past, or think there are clues you might have missed, leave your comments below, because the truth may still be buried, and you could be part of finding it. A desert wind blew gently across the Ngorongoro Valley, a barren region now home to East Africa's most mysterious archaeological excavation site. Beneath the hard, dry ground, researchers discovered an unusually ancient skeleton. Not only was its shape strange, but the wounds on the bone's surface revealed something far more disturbing. Amidst the sand and dust lay a small fossilized skull. The crack on the left side of the skull wasn't caused by age or pressure from the earth. It was something sharp, hard, and deliberate. The team of archaeologists fell silent, staring at each other wordlessly. They knew this wasn't just the remains of a wild animal. These were traces of ancient violence. And it had been inflicted by fellow humans. Time transports us back 2 million years. Back then, the world had not yet learned the wheel, language hadn't yet been born, and fire hadn't yet been tamed by humans. The dense forests were home to creatures that were half human, half animal. They walked upright, but still possessed animal instincts. There were no villages. There were no laws. Only strength and cunning determined who survived. On the edge of the yellowing savanna lived a group of Homo habilis, early creatures said to be the first humans. They lived a nomadic life, hunting small animals and gathering roots to survive. However, their life was far from peaceful. Every night was filled with fear, not only from wild animals, but also from their own kind. In the group was a young man named Ku. His eyes were sharp, his body thin but agile. He was different. He didn't just survive. He observed. He remembered. He harbored an unusual curiosity. But among his kind, curiosity was a weakness, because asking too many questions could lead to death. One night, when the sky was covered with clouds and the moon had disappeared, Ku heard strange sounds coming from the river. He crouched down behind a bush. There he saw something he would never forget. 3 members of his group were surrounding the body of an old woman who had been dead since morning. But they weren't burying her. They were cutting her up. With sharp stones, they chopped at her flesh with strangely systematic skill. Ku was stunned. His breath caught. He wanted to run, but his body froze. From the darkness, his eyes met one of them. Cold, blank stare. A gaze that recognized Ku's presence. But he said nothing. He just kept cutting, as if what he was doing was normal. Like dinner. Like a ritual. The next day, Ku returned to his group as if nothing had happened. But he knew. The world he knew had changed. The day passed, but the faces within the group remained cold and expressionless. No one spoke of that night. It was as if the horrific event had never happened. But Ku knew that beneath their silence lurked something dark. He couldn't forget the faint smell of charred flesh lingering in the morning air. The small fire still smoldering near the circular rock. And the scattered bones, half-heartedly buried in the sand. He began to pay closer attention. The orphans who had suddenly multiplied. The group members who had disappeared without a trace. And the elders who spoke in a strange sign language, only after nightfall. Ku knew something was being hidden from him. But he had no concrete evidence to point to. Only a pang of fear, like sharp shards of stone slowly piercing. The following nights, he pretended to go to bed early. But in reality, he crept behind the acacia tree, scouting the direction of the secret meeting. He mentally noted who was present, what they brought, and when they returned. He began to form a pattern. The ritual wasn't random. It was orderly, structured. Among the gravel, he found a blackened bone fragment. As he picked it up, the bone's surface cracked and split. Inside was a small, sharp stone shard, as if inserted deliberately. Not by an animal but by a human hand. Ku stared at the night sky, his eyes glazed over. He didn't yet know if this knowledge would save him, or destroy him. That day, the group leader, a large man named Guha, summoned all the members to the center of the open field. A young hippopotamus had been trapped and killed. The meat was plentiful, but it was divided unequally. Only certain individuals received the best parts. The rest received bones and skin. Ku, who usually received a common share, was now given only a small knee bone and a little fat. He understood. This wasn't about food distribution. It was a warning. That afternoon, a small girl from the neighboring group arrived in a panic. She said that several adults from her group had disappeared overnight. Ku looked at Guha. The leader's gaze remained calm. As if he had known the news before it was delivered. That night, the campfire was lit more quickly than usual. The crowd gathered closer together, whispering ancient prayers. In a corner, Ku saw an old man sharpening a flat stone on a hard slab. He didn't look at anyone, but his hands moved steadily, as if preparing for something they had been doing for a long time. Ku slowly backed away from the crowd. Inwardly, he began to understand that this was more than just survival. It was a system, a dark tradition passed down from generation to generation. And now he had seen too much. 2 days after the incident, the wind changed direction. A metallic smell hung in the air. The first rain fell, turning the hard ground into deep mud. But the group didn't stop moving. They continued hunting, gathering food, building fires. But something was different. Their eyes darted around more often, as if searching for something. Or someone. Ku knew he didn't have much time. He had gathered enough evidence. Burnt bone fragments. Sharp rocks stained with blackish-brown stains. Indentations in trees. Marks of ropes that had once bound someone. He hid them behind a steep cliff, beneath the large roots of a dead tree. A place no one would approach because it was considered haunted. But that night, heavy footsteps approached him. He froze. He couldn't breathe. 3 men emerged from the darkness, carrying torches and short spears. One of them was Guha. The leader didn't say a word. He just stood in front of Ku, staring with a deadpan stare. His left hand pointed toward the ground, where Ku had hidden his evidence. They knew. But before anyone could move, a low growl came from the bushes behind him. A lioness, thin and hungry, lurked in the shadows. In seconds, chaos erupted. One of the 3 was dragged into the undergrowth. The sound of her bones cracking filled the night. Guha and the others were separated, disoriented. Ku ran without looking back. He kept running until his body fell into a shallow stream, his face hitting a rock. Blood dripped onto the surface of the water. But he didn't stop. He knew this night wasn't about fighting. It was about escaping. About staying alive, about telling the truth about what was happening in a world that people thought was sinless. A few days later, Ku's body was found by another group migrating north. He was semi-conscious, dehydrated, the wound on his leg festering. But he was still alive. And in his hand, he clutched a piece of black bone, half-burned, with strange markings that no one could read. The new group cared for Ku. They didn't ask too many questions. And Ku didn't explain anything. He just stared blankly at the campfire every night. He knew this wasn't the only place he'd come from. What he witnessed didn't stop at one valley, one group, one night. It's a legacy. And as long as humans fear hunger, death, or loneliness, that fire will never truly be extinguished.